Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to Lore and Lantern, a place for timeless stories told slowly, meant to soften the mind and keep gentle company through the night. By the dim glow of a lantern, we begin a journey carried across centuries, from rooms lit by candlelight to the quiet nights of today. This is the beginning of 1001 Nights, the first thread of a vast and wondrous tapestry. And this story does not begin with magic, but with a wound in the heart of a king. This was the first night, the night when everything truly began. Long ago, there lived a powerful ruler. His name was Shahryar. He governed a vast kingdom. His word was law, firm, unchallenged, absolute. He had a brother named Shah Zaman, the king of a neighboring land. The two brothers were close. They trusted one another. They believed the world to be orderly, faithful, and secure. But one day, that belief was broken. It began with Shah Zaman. Before setting out to visit his brother, he returned unexpectedly to his own palace, as if a quiet voice within him whispered, "Go back and see." And there, within the walls of his palace, he witnessed betrayal. His queen, the woman he trusted above all others, had been unfaithful. This was no rumor, no misunderstanding. He saw it with his own eyes. His pride shattered. His heart grew heavy. Something within him cracked and would never return to what it once was. Shah Zaman spoke of this to no one. He carried his pain like a sealed letter within his chest. And then he traveled to his brother, Shahryar, perhaps seeking comfort, perhaps hoping to forget. The night deepened, and the story had only just begun. The next night, the silence would ask to be heard. This was the second night. The palace stood in silence. Torches burned along the corridors, their light steady, their flames unmoving. Shah Zaman was welcomed as a king. Gates opened, footsteps echoed softly, and every gesture was measured. Shahryar's palace was built on order, tall columns, wide courtyards, long paths lit by lanterns at night. Everything was in its place. Everything was quiet. Everything as it should be. Yet Shahryar noticed something. His brother did not eat. He did not smile. When spoken to, his gaze drifted away, as if his body were present, but his mind remained locked in another room. Days passed. The silence grew heavier. And one evening, when the palace had grown still, when lantern light touched the stone floors, Shahryar could bear it no longer. "My brother," he said, "your body has come to me, but your spirit remains elsewhere. Tell me, what sorrow has silenced you?" Shah-Zaman lowered his head. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he drew a deep breath, and with that breath, he began to open the secret he had carried. The night deepened, and words, long withheld, were about to surface. The next night, the truth would finally be spoken. This was the third night. The silence no longer held. Shah-Zaman spoke. He told of his sudden return, of the palace at rest, of corridors too quiet for comfort. He spoke of doors left ajar, of shadows that did not belong, and of a moment he wished had never come. Within his own chambers, within the walls he trusted most, he witnessed betrayal. Not from rumor, not from whispers, but with his own eyes. The woman he had trusted, the bond he believed unbroken, had failed him. As Shah-Zaman spoke, his voice remained steady, but his hands did not. Shahryar listened. His face did not change. His posture remained firm. Yet somewhere inside, a thin ache began to form. Still, he told himself, this sorrow belongs to another. It is not mine. For when pain is distant, one feels protected. When the story ended, neither brother spoke. The night pressed on. Soon after, the brothers decided to travel together. But before they departed, Shahryar returned briefly to his own palace, to prepare, to take leave, to put his affairs in order. And it was then that fate quietly intervened. Shahryar entered his palace without announcement. No warning, no drums, no open gates. The palace was simply itself. And in that stillness, he came face to face with the truth. What he saw was not merely betrayal. It was the collapse of the world he believed secure. Shahryar stood unmoving. He breathed, but the breath brought no calm. Then anger came, silent, heavy, certain. That night, judgment was passed. But judgment cannot undo what is seen. Something closed within Shahryar. Trust faded, love hardened, and the shape of his heart changed. From that night, a vow began to take form. The night drew on, and the path ahead had darkened. The next night, the vow would find its voice. This was the fourth night. The vow had not yet been spoken aloud, but it had already taken root. Shahryar did not sleep. The palace rested, but his thoughts did not. What he had seen returned to him again and again, not as images, but as a weight. By morning, orders were given. Justice, as he understood it, was carried out. Those involved were punished. The palace was cleansed. Yet what had been broken did not mend. Shahryar learned something that night. Punishment does not restore trust. It only teaches fear. As the days passed, the shape of his thoughts changed. Love, once a promise, became a risk. Loyalty, once assumed, became a disguise. And from this certainty, the vow emerged. Each night a new bride, each dawn a grave. The vow was not born of cruelty, it was born of certainty, a certainty that betrayal was inevitable. The city felt the change. Doors closed earlier, voices lowered, families grew silent. Night was no longer safe. But even in darkness, possibility remains. And that possibility was growing quietly within the house of the vizier. His eldest daughter had been listening, watching, remembering. Her name was Scheherazade. She had been raised on stories. She knew the weight of words, and she understood what steel could not solve. For sometimes, a story can reach where a blade cannot. As the fourth night ended, a path began to form. The next night, that path would be chosen. This was the fifth night. The path had been seen. Now, it had to be walked. Scheherazade stood before her father, the vizier who served the king. His loyalty was unquestioned. His fear was unspoken. "I will go to the palace," she said. Her voice was steady. Her eyes did not waver. The vizier turned pale. He knew the vow. He knew its end. "No," he said. "This is not a request to make lightly." Scheherazade did not raise her voice. She did not argue. She simply said, "There is no other way." She spoke of the city, of the daughters who vanished with the dawn, of the silence that spread each night. "And I know," she added, "what steel cannot change. I know what words can reach." Her father wept, not loudly, not openly. He wept as those do who already know they will lose. But Scheherazade did not speak of death. She spoke of timing, of pauses, of unfinished stories. "Let me speak," she said, "and let me stop before the ending." The vizier understood then, not the plan, but the courage. This was the sixth night. The palace gates opened before dawn had fully faded. Scheherazade entered without ceremony. No music, no celebration, only silence and the weight of the vow. She was brought before Shahryar. He did not look at her at once. His gaze was fixed ahead, as if already past the night. Scheherazade lowered her eyes, not in fear, but in patience. When she spoke, her voice was gentle, not pleading, not defiant, measured. She did not begin with her own story. She began with another. "A long time ago," she said, "there lived a ruler who believed that certainty was safety." Shahryar listened, not because he wished to, but because the words did not rush him. Scheherazade continued. She spoke of choices made too quickly, of truths seen too late. Her words moved slowly, like water finding its path. The night deepened. The story unfolded, but did not complete itself. Scheherazade stopped, not at a conclusion, but at a turning point. Shahryar looked at her then, for the first time that night. The silence stretched, dawn approached, and the vow waited. But the ending did not arrive, because the story had not ended. When morning came, Scheherazade still lived. The sixth night had held, and something unseen had shifted. The next night, a question would begin to form. This was the seventh night. The question had not yet been spoken, but it was awake. Scheherazade stood again before Shahryar. The room was the same. The silence was the same. But the night was not. She began where she had stopped, not by repeating, not by explaining. She simply continued. The ruler in the story, she said, believed that control could protect him, that if he decided everything, nothing could harm him. Shahryar listened, because the words did not accuse, they reflected. Scheherazade spoke of a man who feared being wounded again, and so built walls higher each night. But walls, she said softly, also keep out what might heal. The story moved forward, slowly, carefully, always leaving one thread untied. Shahryar's breathing changed, not sharply, not suddenly, just enough to be noticed. Scheherazade paused, not because she had nothing to say, but because she knew when silence must speak. The night stretched. The story remained unfinished. Dawn approached. Shahryar did not speak, but his eyes did not turn away. When morning came, Scheherazade still lived. The seventh night had passed, and within the silence, the question had taken shape. The next night, that question would demand an answer. Scheherazade was the sixth night. The palace gates opened before dawn had fully faded. Scheherazade entered without ceremony. No music, no celebration, only silence and the weight of the vow. She was brought before Shahryar. He did not look at her at once. His gaze was fixed ahead, as if already past the night. Scheherazade lowered her eyes, not in fear, but in patience. When she spoke, her voice was gentle, not pleading, not defiant, measured. She did not begin with her own story. She began with another. A long time ago, she said, there lived a ruler who believed that certainty was safety. Shahryar listened, not because he wished to, but because the words did not rush him. Scheherazade continued. She spoke of choices made too quickly, of truths seen too late. Her words moved slowly, like water finding its path. The night deepened. The story unfolded, but did not complete itself. Scheherazade stopped, not at a conclusion, but at a turning point. Shahryar looked at her then, for the first time that night. The silence stretched. Dawn approached, and the vow waited. That the ending did not arrive, because the story had not ended. When morning came, Scheherazade still lived. The sixth night had held, and something unseen had shifted. The next night, a question would begin to form. This was the eighth night. The question was no longer distant. It lingered between words, between breaths. Scheherazade did not hurry. She knew this night required patience. She continued the story. The ruler, she said, began to sense that his certainty was costing him something unseen. He had protected himself from pain, but also from understanding. The words settled slowly, not as accusation, not as judgment, as recognition. Scheherazade spoke of a night when the ruler heard his own thoughts for the first time, without anger, without defense. In that quiet, she said, he realized that fear had been guiding his hand. Shahryar remained still, but his eyes did not harden. They searched. The story moved on. It spoke of a choice not yet made, a moment suspended. Scheherazade lowered her voice. Some questions, she said, cannot be answered with action. They ask to be carried through the night. She stopped, not at an ending, but at a threshold. The silence deepened. Dawn approached once more. Shahryar did not signal. He did not speak, but he did not turn away. When morning came, Scheherazade still lived. The eighth night had passed, and within the palace, certainty had begun to loosen. The next night, memory would begin to speak. This was the ninth night. Memory had begun to stir. Scheherazade spoke again. Her voice was steady, but softer, because this night carried weight. She told of the ruler remembering a time before the vow, a time when trust had not yet been broken. He remembered laughter, ease, the absence of watchfulness. These memories, she said, did not weaken him. They reminded him of what had been lost. The story moved inward, toward moments unspoken, toward choices unquestioned. Scheherazade described how memory can wound, but also reveal. How it shows us, she said, not only what hurt us, but who we were before the hurt. Shahryar listened, not as a king, not as a judge, but as someone recognizing a familiar ache. The silence grew thoughtful, not heavy, not sharp, reflective. Scheherazade slowed her words, for when memory returns, she said, it asks something of us. Not punishment, not denial, but honesty. She stopped. The story, once again, was left unfinished. Dawn approached. Shahryar remained still, but his hands, once clenched, now rested open. When morning came, Scheherazade still lived. The 9th night had passed, and within Shahryar, a truth had begun to settle. The next night, that truth would no longer remain silent. This was the 10th night. The truth could no longer remain quiet. The palace felt different, not because it had changed, but because something within it had shifted. Scheherazade spoke with measured calm, not to persuade, not to defend, but to reveal. The ruler, she said, finally understood that fear had shaped his justice, that certainty had felt like strength, but had grown into a cage. The words did not accuse, they named. Scheherazade spoke of a moment when the ruler looked not outward, but inward, and saw that the vow had not healed the wound, it had preserved it. Shahryar listened. His breathing slowed, not from relief, but from recognition. The wound, she said softly, had never asked for punishment. It asked to be seen. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of memory, of regret, of possibility. Scheherazade did not finish the story. She let it rest where answers could not yet be spoken. Dawn arrived. Light touched the palace walls, and for the first time, the morning did not feel like an ending. Scheherazade still lived. The 10th night had passed, and something fundamental had begun to change. Not in the world, but in Shahryar. This was not the end of the story. It was the end of the beginning. The next nights would no longer be about survival alone, but about understanding. And so, this first chapter of the story comes to an end. Scheherazade's words are not yet complete, and the journey within Shahryar's heart has only just begun. What you have heard tonight was only a beginning. Ahead, the stories will grow deeper. The questions will search for their answers, and the nights will continue to weave into one another. If you wish to continue this journey, you may listen to the next chapter in our following video. For now, leave the night as it is, and allow the words to travel quietly with you.